How many times have you promised yourself that tomorrow would be different, only to wake up and do exactly what you promised you wouldn't? You said you'd wake up early. You'd stop procrastinating. Study harder. Exercise. Save money. Spend less time on your phone. And the strange part? You actually meant it. So why do you keep breaking promises you genuinely wanted to keep? Maybe you're not lazy. Maybe you don't lack discipline. Maybe your mind is doing something you haven't noticed. Because every broken promise teaches your brain something. And eventually, you may stop trusting yourself. Here are 15 psychological reasons you keep breaking your own promises. The first is simple. You make promises to your future self. At night, waking up at 5 a.m. sounds easy. You're comfortable. You're motivated. You're imagining the disciplined version of yourself. But tomorrow morning, you're tired. The warm bed feels better than the exam that is weeks away. This is temporal discounting. Your brain naturally gives more value to immediate rewards than distant ones. The exam matters more. But the phone feels better now. And future you has to deal with that decision. Second, you confuse intention with commitment. I want to study more sounds like a plan. It isn't. A real commitment sounds like, at 7 p.m., I'll study chapter 3 for 20 minutes. One is a wish. The other tells your brain exactly what to do. Third, immediate comfort beats delayed rewards. Procrastination isn't always about avoiding work. Sometimes it's about escaping discomfort. You feel anxious about studying, so you check your phone. The anxiety disappears. Your brain learns. Avoidance equals relief. Repeat that enough, and avoidance becomes automatic. Fourth, your promise is too big. I'll study 5 hours every day. I'll work out 7 days a week. I'll never procrastinate again. These promises sound impressive. But if your current behavior is nowhere near that level, you're setting yourself up for failure. A promise you can keep for 10 minutes is more valuable than one you abandon after 2 hours. Small wins create self-efficacy, the belief that you can actually do what you say you'll do. Fifth, you try to change your identity overnight. You don't just want to study more. You want to become a disciplined person. But identity isn't created by declarations. It's created by evidence. Every time you do something your old self would have avoided, you're giving your brain evidence that you're becoming someone different. Sixth, you depend on motivation. Motivation feels powerful. But it changes with your mood, energy, stress, and environment. If you only act when you feel motivated, you're depending on something that was never designed to be consistent. Discipline becomes easier when you remove the need to constantly decide. Seventh, you rely on willpower instead of your environment. If your phone is beside you, checking it requires almost no effort. If your book is open on your desk, studying becomes easier to begin. Your environment is constantly influencing your behavior. So instead of asking only, why am I so undisciplined? Ask, what have I made too easy? Eighth, your goal is too abstract. I want to be successful. I want to get healthier. I want to stop wasting time. Your brain can't perform an abstract goal. It performs actions. Study chapter 3 at 7 p.m. is actionable. Become successful isn't. The clearer the behavior, the harder it is to hide behind vague intentions. Ninth, you make decisions based on how you feel. You plan to study. Then evening comes, and you're tired. I don't feel like it. So you don't. But feelings aren't instructions. You can feel unmotivated and still begin. You can feel anxious and still act. Commitment begins where the mood stops cooperating. 10th, you make promises when you feel guilty. You waste the entire day. Then guilt hits. So you promise. Tomorrow I'll wake up at 5. I'll study all day. I'll never waste time again. For a moment, you feel better. The promise gives you the feeling that you're back in control. But nothing has actually changed. Guilt creates a dramatic promise. The promise creates relief. Then reality arrives. And the cycle repeats. 11th, you think one failure ruins everything. You miss one workout. One study session. One day of your routine. Then you think, I've already messed up. So one missed day becomes a missed week. This is all or nothing thinking. Consistency doesn't mean never failing. It means returning quickly after you do. 12th, you've lost trust in yourself. Imagine someone who constantly promises to call you but never does. Eventually, you stop believing them. The same thing can happen internally. You say, tomorrow I'll do it. And another voice quietly answers, sure you will. Self-trust isn't rebuilt through bigger promises. It's rebuilt through smaller promises you actually keep. 13th, you punish yourself instead of studying yourself. You call yourself lazy, useless, undisciplined. But shame rarely gives you useful information. Instead, ask, what happened right before I procrastinated? Maybe the task was too large. Maybe you were exhausted. Maybe your phone was nearby. Maybe you were afraid of failing. Now you have something you can actually change. 14th, you keep restarting instead of continuing. Monday. Next month. Your birthday. New year. You're always waiting for the perfect moment to become a new person. But real consistency isn't dramatic. Sometimes it's simply, I missed yesterday. Today, I continue. And finally, the hardest one. Part of you may not actually want what you say you want. Not consciously. But there can be a conflict. You want better grades, but you don't want the anxiety of difficult studying. You want to save money, but you want the pleasure of spending it. You want success, but you're afraid of what success might demand. This is ambivalence. Part of you wants the reward. Another part wants the comfort of staying exactly where you are. So instead of asking only, what do I want? Ask, what am I getting from staying this way? Because sometimes the behavior you're trying to eliminate is solving a short-term emotional problem while creating a much bigger long-term one. So what do? Don't make another massive promise. Pick one behavior. Make it small. Make it specific. And make your environment support it. Don't say, I'll study more. Say, at 7 p.m., I'll study for 10 minutes. Then keep that promise. Because you're not just building a habit. You're rebuilding evidence. Evidence that your words can become actions. And when you fail, don't turn the failure into an identity. Study it. Adjust. Continue. Because discipline isn't becoming a person who never fails. It's becoming a person who doesn't abandon themselves every time they do. So maybe the real question isn't, Why can't I keep promises to myself? Maybe it's, what happens between the moment I make the promise and the moment I'm supposed to keep it? Because that's where the real answer is hiding. Maybe you're choosing immediate comfort over a distant reward. Maybe you've made the promise too difficult. Maybe you're waiting for motivation. Maybe you've built an environment that makes failure easier. Or maybe there's a part of you that's afraid of what will happen if you actually become the person you're trying to become. Whatever the reason is, don't make another huge promise tonight. Make one small one. And keep it. Because every time you keep your word to yourself, you're doing more than completing a task. You're rebuilding something. Trust. The kind of trust that makes you stop saying, "This time I'll change." And start knowing, "I will." Not because you suddenly became stronger. Not because you found endless motivation. But because you've given yourself enough evidence to believe your own word again. And maybe that's what real discipline is. Not becoming someone who never fails. But becoming someone who, after failing, comes back. So before you leave, ask yourself one question. What's the promise you've broken so many times that you no longer believe yourself when you make it? Don't just think about it. Be honest with yourself. Because sometimes, the first step to changing a pattern is finally admitting that the pattern exists. This is Hidden Minds. And if you want to understand the parts of your mind you rarely notice, the patterns, fears, habits, and invisible forces shaping your everyday behavior, you know where to find us. Until next time, look closer.